I found my children sleeping in a shed. Not a finished guest house or a cozy cottage, a actual tool shed with exposed nails and black mold, while their cousins slept in their beds. My parents saw nothing wrong with it. My brother smirked from the doorway with his beer. Kids are resilient, he said. That's the moment I stopped being the daughter who kept the peace, who made excuses, who accepted whatever scraps of love they offered. Some betrayals are so complete they set you free. The fluorescent lights of Riverside General Hospital flickered as Emily Carter pulled off her surgical cap, letting her dark hair fall loose around her shoulders. 12 hours into what was supposed to be an 8-hour shift, she'd stayed to help with an emergency that rolled in just as she was about to leave. Her feet ached in her worn nursing shoes, and her back protested as she stretched, but none of that mattered now. She was finally heading home to see Liam and Sophie. Long night? Asked Janet, the night shift nurse taking over. Double, actually, Emily replied, grabbing her purse from her locker. But I've got the whole weekend off, and I've been planning something special for the kids. Janet smiled knowingly. Emily was always talking about her children, 10-year-old Liam with his love of astronomy and 7-year-old Sophie, who could spend hours drawing elaborate fairy kingdoms. Being a single mother wasn't easy, especially with the long hours at the hospital, but Emily had managed to create a stable life for them. Well, mostly stable. Living with her parents for the past year had been a necessary compromise after her divorce, but she was saving every penny for their own place. The October air was crisp as Emily walked to her aging Honda SUV in the parking lot. She checked her phone. 2:47 a.m. The kids would be fast asleep at her parents' house, but she couldn't wait to tell them about the surprise camping trip she'd booked for the weekend. Nothing fancy, just a cabin by the lake, but it would be theirs. No interruptions, no judgments from her mother about her parenting choices, no comments from her father about how she should have tried harder to make her marriage work. The drive through the quiet suburban streets of Millbrook gave Emily time to decompress. She rolled down the window slightly, letting the cool air keep her alert. 20 minutes later, she turned onto Maple Street, where her parents' 2-story colonial house sat surrounded by a neat lawn and her mother's prized rose bushes. Something felt off immediately. The porch light was on, that was normal. But Liam's blue mountain bike and Sophie's pink one with the sparkly streamers weren't leaning against the porch railing, where they always left them. Emily frowned. Her mother, Margaret, was particular about the bikes being put away in the garage, but the kids often forgot, and Emily usually moved them herself when she got home. She pulled into the driveway behind her father's truck and her mother's sedan. There was another car she didn't recognize, a newer model BMW that looked out of place. Emily's stomach tightened slightly. Unexpected visitors at her parents' house usually meant drama of some kind. The front door opened silently. Her father had finally fixed that squeak. The house was dark except for a dim light coming from the kitchen. Emily set her purse down quietly and headed upstairs to check on the kids first. Their room was the second door on the right, the one with Sophie's hand-drawn "Keep Out, Fairy Princess Only" sign that Liam tolerated with big brotherly patience. Emily pushed the door open gently, not wanting to wake them. The nightlight cast shadows across the room, illuminating 2 neatly made beds. Empty beds. Her heart rate quickened. Maybe they'd crawled into the guest room? Sometimes Sophie had nightmares and Liam would comfort her there. She crossed the hall to the guest room and froze. The door was ajar, and she could see inside. 2 boys she didn't recognize were asleep in the queen-sized bed. They looked to be around 8 and 11, sandy-haired, and sprawled across the mattress. The room had been rearranged, new curtains, different bedding, and several suitcases stacked in the corner. "Emily, you're home early." She spun around to find her mother standing in the hallway, wearing her quilted robe and holding a glass of water. Margaret's gray hair was in curlers, and her expression was oddly defensive. "Mom, where are Liam and Sophie?" Emily's voice came out sharper than intended. Margaret's lips pursed, that expression Emily knew too well, the one that meant she was about to justify something unreasonable. "They're fine, dear. They're sleeping outside." "Outside?" Emily's voice rose despite herself. "What do you mean outside?" "Keep your voice down," Margaret hissed, glancing at the guest room. "You'll wake Ryan's boys."
Ryan.
Of course. Emily's older brother, the golden child who could do no wrong in their parents' eyes. The one who'd gotten a car for his 16th birthday, while Emily got a lecture about responsibility. The one whose business failures were always someone else's fault, whose divorces were because women just don't understand ambitious men. Why are Ryan's kids in my children's room? Emily fought to keep her voice level. Ryan needed our help. His ex is being difficult about custody, and he's staying here while things get sorted out. The boys need stability. And my kids don't. Margaret's expression hardened. Your children are adaptable. They're fine with the temporary arrangement. What temporary arrangement? But even as she asked, Emily was already moving toward the stairs, her mother trailing behind. Emily, don't be dramatic. It's not a big deal. Emily pushed through the kitchen and out the back door. The backyard was bathed in moonlight, and her eyes went immediately to the old shed at the far end. It had been her father's workshop years ago, but now it mostly held gardening equipment and holiday decorations. The door was slightly open, and she could see a faint light inside. Her feet carried her across the damp grass, her hospital shoes squelching slightly. She pulled the shed door fully open and felt her heart shatter. Liam and Sophie were there, curled up on two old mattresses that had been dragged from the basement. Sophie was clutching her stuffed rabbit, her small face streaked with dried tears even in sleep. Liam had his arm protectively around his sister, his jaw clenched even in slumber. The shed smelled of mildew and motor oil. A battery-powered lantern provided the only light, and Emily could see her breath in the cold air. One of the windows was cracked, letting in the October chill. "They've been out here for 2 nights," came a smug voice from behind her. Emily turned to see Ryan standing in the doorway of the house, silhouetted against the kitchen light. He was wearing expensive pajamas and holding a beer, his satisfaction evident even from a distance. 2 nights. Emily's voice was deadly quiet. "My boys needed proper beds," Ryan called out, taking a sip of his beer. "Kids are resilient. Yours are fine." Emily knelt beside the mattresses, gently touching Liam's shoulder. His eyes flew open immediately. He'd always been a light sleeper. "Mom," his voice was thick with sleep and something else relief. "Hey, baby," Emily whispered, her voice catching. "Wake your sister. We're leaving." Sophie stirred, rubbing her eyes. When she saw Emily, she launched herself into her mother's arms. "Mommy, I don't like it out here. There are spiders and it's cold, and Grandma said we had to be good sports." Emily held her daughter tight, fury building in her chest like a physical thing. She could see now, really see the conditions. Exposed nails jutting from the walls. Black mold creeping along one corner. No insulation. No heat. No bathroom access without going back to the house. "Get your things," she said quietly to both children. "We're not staying here another minute." Walter had appeared by now, standing next to Ryan with his arms crossed. Her father had always been a man of few words, letting Margaret handle the talking, but his silence spoke volumes. Emily stood, lifting Sophie onto her hip despite her exhaustion. Liam grabbed their backpacks from the corner of the shed. "You're overreacting," Margaret said, having followed them outside. "It's just for a few more days until Ryan finds his own place." "A few more days?" Emily turned to face her mother, Sophie's arms tight around her neck. "You put my children in a shed. A shed with mold, broken windows, and exposed nails. In October. They had blankets." Walter finally spoke, as if that made everything acceptable. "You can't expect my kids to share a room with yours," Ryan added, his tone suggesting the very idea was preposterous. "They need their space." Emily looked at her brother, really looked at him. 35 years old, on his 3rd job in 2 years, his 2nd divorce, still running to their parents every time life got difficult. And they always welcomed him with open arms and open wallets. "Your boys are in a heated room with proper beds while my children are sleeping with a lawnmower?" Emily's voice was steady, but Liam must have heard something in it because he moved closer to her side. "That's enough, Emily," Margaret said sharply. "This is our house. We make the decisions. If you don't like it, you're free to leave." Emily felt Sophie trembling against her, whether from cold or upset. She wasn't sure. Liam was glaring at his uncle with a fury that no 10-year-old should have to feel. "Mom," Liam said quietly, "my science project is still in our room. Can I get it?" Emily set Sophie down gently. "Both of you, go inside and pack everything. Everything. Don't leave a single toy or book behind." As the kids headed inside, Emily faced her family. Her parents, who were supposed to protect and love all their grandchildren equally. Her brother, who had never once considered anyone's needs but his own. "This is the last time," she said quietly. "The last time you treat my children as less than. The last time you make them feel unwelcome in what was supposed to be their home." "Drama queen as always," Ryan muttered, but Emily had already turned away, following her children into the house. Inside, Emily found her kids in what had been their room. Sophie was crying quietly as she pulled her drawings from the desk drawer, while Liam was methodically packing his books into a box. Ryan's boys had woken up and were watching from the bed, the older one smirking in a way that reminded her painfully of his father. "Is this all your stuff?" one of them asked Liam, gesturing at the astronomy posters still on the wall. "Yeah," Liam replied shortly, not looking at his cousin. "My dad says you guys are moving to the shed permanently. He says it builds character." Emily stepped into the room. "Boys, go back to sleep." "Liam, Sophie, let's get your things." She helped them pack quickly and efficiently, years of emergency room experience making her good at swift, decisive action. Margaret stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You're being ridiculous, Emily. Family makes sacrifices for each other." "Sacrifices?" Emily zipped up Sophie's backpack. "When have you ever asked Ryan to sacrifice anything?" "That's different. Ryan's going through a difficult time. I'm a single mother working double shifts to keep my kids fed and clothed, and you put them in a shed." Emily's voice was still calm, but there was steel in it now. Ryan appeared behind Margaret, still holding his beer. "Maybe if you'd been a better wife, you wouldn't be a single mother." The words hung in the air like a slap. Emily saw Liam's hands clench into fists, and she put a gentle hand on his shoulder. "And maybe if you'd been a better husband, you wouldn't be on your second divorce, living with mommy and daddy at 35, Emily replied evenly. "How dare you?" Margaret started.
"No, Mom."
"How dare you?" Emily picked up the box of Liam's books. "How dare you put my 7-year-old daughter in a freezing shed? How dare you tell my son that he matters less than his cousins? How dare you stand there and act like I'm the one being unreasonable?" Walter finally came upstairs, his heavy footsteps on the old wooden floors. "This is our house, Emily. Our rules. If you don't like how we run things, you're free to leave." Emily looked at her father, the man who'd taught her to ride a bike, who'd walked her down the aisle, who'd held Liam when he was born. "You're right, Dad. It is your house. And we are leaving." "Where are you going to go?" Margaret demanded. "You can't afford your own place. You need us." "Mom," Liam said suddenly, his young voice cutting through the tension. "Did we do something wrong? Is that why we had to sleep outside?" The question broke Emily's heart. She knelt down to his level, setting the box aside.
"No, sweetheart.
You and Sophie did absolutely nothing wrong. Sometimes adults make bad choices, and this was a bad choice. But it's not your fault." "Then why?" Sophie asked in a small voice. Emily looked up at her parents, who had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "Because sometimes people forget what's really important. But I haven't forgotten. You two are the most important things in my world, and I'm going to make sure you're treated that way." She stood, gathering their belongings. "Kids, take your bags to the car." As Liam and Sophie headed downstairs, Ryan called after them. "Running away won't solve your problems, Emily. You'll be back. You always come back." Emily turned to face him one last time. Not this time. She found the kids by her SUV, Liam helping Sophie with her backpack. The night air was cold, and both children were shivering slightly. Emily opened the back of the vehicle and started loading their things. "It's going to be an adventure," she told them, keeping her voice light despite the anger still burning in her chest. "Like the camping trips we take, remember?" "But where are we going, Mom?" Sophie asked, her lower lip trembling. Emily pulled out her phone, scrolling to Claire's number. Claire had been her friend since nursing school, a constant source of support through the divorce and everything after. She answered on the third ring, voice groggy with sleep.
Ain't
Everything okay? Claire, I'm so sorry to call this late. Or early. I don't even know anymore. Can the kids and I crash with you tonight? I'll explain everything when we get there. Of course. Always. You know that. Drive safe. Emily hung up and turned to her children. We're going to stay with Aunt Claire tonight. Remember how she makes those amazing chocolate chip pancakes? Sophie perked up slightly at this, though Liam still looked troubled. They climbed into the car, and Emily took one last look at her parents' house. Margaret and Walter stood in the doorway, backlit by the hall light. Ryan had disappeared, probably back to his beer and the comfort of the living room. As she pulled out of the driveway, Emily caught sight of the shed in her rearview mirror, its door still open like a wound in the yard. She promised herself that her children would never, ever spend another night being treated as less than they deserved. The drive to Claire's took an hour, winding through sleeping towns and empty highways. Sophie fell asleep after 20 minutes, her soft snores filling the car. Liam stayed awake, staring out the window. Mom, he said quietly, are we ever going back? Emily glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Her son, too young to be worrying about such things, too perceptive to be fooled by easy answers. I don't know, baby. But I promise you this, we're never going back to that. No more shed. No more being treated like we don't matter. Grandma and Grandpa love Ryan more than us, don't they? The question she'd been dreading, the truth she'd tried to shield them from for so long. I think they love him differently, but that's their problem, not ours. I hate him, Liam said quietly, and Emily didn't correct him. How could she, when part of her felt the same way? Claire's house appeared like a beacon in the early morning darkness. It was a modest two-story in a quiet neighborhood, with a porch swing and garden gnomes that Sophie had helped pick out last summer. The porch light was on, and Claire was standing in the doorway wearing mismatched pajamas and a concerned expression. Oh, she said, taking in the sight of them. Emily exhausted, Liam angry, Sophie bleary-eyed and confused.
come in.
The house smelled like cinnamon and coffee. Claire had already started a pot brewing and had pulled out extra blankets and pillows. She'd set up the guest room with fresh sheets and even put out some of the kids' favorite books from previous visits. You guys remember where everything is, Claire said gently to the children. Bathroom's down the hall, and I put some cookies on the nightstand in case you're hungry. Sophie immediately perked up at the mention of cookies, and even Liam managed a small smile. Emily got them settled, tucking Sophie in and sitting on Liam's bed for a moment. Try to get some sleep, she told him. We'll figure everything out in the morning. Are we going to be okay, Mom? He asked, sounding younger than his 10 years. We're going to be better than okay, Emily promised, kissing his forehead. We're going to be great. Once the kids were settled, Emily found Claire in the kitchen, 2 mugs of coffee waiting on the table. Emily sank into a chair and finally let herself feel the full weight of what had happened. They put my babies in a shed, Claire. A moldy, freezing shed with broken windows and exposed nails. Claire's expression darkened. Start from the beginning. Emily told her everything, coming home to find Ryan's kids in Liam and Sophie's beds, the casual cruelty of her parents' decision, Ryan's smug satisfaction, the devastating question Liam had asked about whether they'd done something wrong. 2 nights, Emily said, her voice breaking. They spent 2 nights out there, and I didn't know. I was at work, trusting my parents to take care of them, and they were sleeping with the garden tools. This isn't your fault, Claire said firmly. You trusted family. That's what you're supposed to be able to do. Is it though? Emily wrapped her hands around the warm mug. This isn't new, Claire. The favoritism, it's been happening my whole life. She thought back to all the instances, big and small. Ryan getting a car, while she got a bus pass. Ryan's college fully paid for while she took out loans. Ryan's business ventures funded while she was told to be more responsible with money. When Ryan's first marriage fell apart, their parents blamed his ex-wife entirely. When Emily's marriage ended, she got lectures about not trying hard enough. Remember when I was pregnant with Liam? Emily continued. I was on bed rest, could barely move, and my parents went on a cruise with Ryan instead of helping me. Said he needed cheering up after losing his job. I remember, Claire said quietly. I remember driving you to your appointments because you couldn't reach them. And when Sophie was born premature, and I needed help with Liam while she was in the NICU. They were busy helping Ryan move into his new apartment after divorce number 1. The pattern was so clear now, laid out in the harsh light of this latest betrayal. Emily had spent years making excuses, keeping the peace, not wanting to rock the boat for the sake of her children having grandparents in their lives. You know what Liam said in the car? Emily's voice was hollow. He asked if his grandparents love Ryan more than them. He's 10 years old, and he already knows. Claire reached across the table and squeezed Emily's hand. So, what are you going to do? I don't know. I can't afford rent on my own, not with daycare costs and everything else. But I can't go back there. I won't. You'll stay here as long as you need, Claire said immediately. I can't impose like that.
Stop.
You're not imposing. You're surviving. There's a difference. Emily's phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Stop being dramatic and come home. The children need stability. She showed it to Claire, who snorted. Stability? They put kids in a shed. That's what I'm dealing with. They genuinely don't see what they did wrong. In their minds, Ryan needed help, so everyone else has to sacrifice. Except it's always us sacrificing, never him. Another text, this one from Ryan. Way to traumatize your kids with your drama. Typical Emily, making everything about her. Emily deleted it without responding, but not before Claire saw it. What an ass, Claire muttered. Sorry, I know he's your brother. No, you're right. He is. Emily rubbed her temples, exhaustion finally catching up with her. I spent so many years trying to earn their approval, you know? If I just worked harder, if I was just a better daughter, maybe they'd love me the way they love him. Their love comes with conditions for you, but not for him. That's not fair, and it's not your fault. Emily heard footsteps on the stairs and turned to see Liam standing in the doorway, rumpled and worried. Can't sleep? She asked gently. He shook his head and came over, Claire immediately getting up to make him some hot chocolate. Liam sat next to Emily, leaning against her shoulder. I heard what you were saying, he admitted quietly. About Uncle Ryan and Grandma and Grandpa. Emily's instinct was to protect him, to say it was adult stuff, but she looked at his serious face and realized he'd already seen too much to be fooled by pretty lies. What do you think about it? She asked instead. I think you keep the peace too much, he said, echoing Claire's earlier sentiment. You always tell us to stand up to bullies at school, but you don't stand up to them. Out of the mouths of babes. Emily hugged him closer. You're right. I haven't been very good at following my own advice. So, what are we going to do? We're going to find our own place, Emily said, the decision crystallizing as she spoke. It might be small, and things might be tight for a while, but it'll be ours. No one will be able to put you in a shed or make you feel less than ever again. Claire returned with the hot chocolate, and Liam sipped it gratefully. Can I help look for places? Of course. We're a team, right? He nodded, some of the tension easing from his small shoulders. Eventually, he headed back to bed, and Emily opened her laptop, starting to search rental listings. Most were out of her price range, but she bookmarked a few possibilities. There's a program, Claire said suddenly. At the hospital. David from pediatrics mentioned it, housing assistance for single parents who work in healthcare. You should talk to him. A spark of hope. Emily made a note to find David during her next shift. Her phone rang, Margaret calling. Emily let it go to voicemail. Emily, this is ridiculous. You're confusing the children with this behavior. Your father and I have always been there for you. Don't throw away family over a silly misunderstanding. The children were fine. Ryan's boys will only be here another week or two. Stop being selfish and come home. Selfish. Emily almost laughed. She'd been selfless to the point of letting her children sleep in a shed rather than cause conflict. No more, she said quietly, deleting the voicemail. No more, Claire agreed. As dawn broke over the horizon, Emily finally headed to the guest room. Sophie was sprawled across the bed, taking up more space than seemed possible for someone so small. Liam was curled up in a chair with a book, having given his sister the whole bed. Emily's heart swelled with love for these two amazing little humans who deserved so much better than what they'd been given. She kissed both their foreheads and made a silent promise. Never again would anyone make them feel like second-class citizens in their own family. She thought about her parents, probably waking up now in their comfortable house, Ryan's boys in her children's beds, the shed door still open in the backyard. Did they feel any guilt? Any recognition of what they'd done? Her phone buzzed with another text from Margaret. "Your father wants to know when you're bringing the children back. We have church tomorrow." Emily typed back her first response. "We won't be coming to church. We won't be coming back at all until you understand what you did wrong and apologize to my children for putting them in danger." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she turned off her phone, pulled an extra blanket over her kids, and curled up in the chair to watch them sleep in safety and warmth, exactly as they deserved. Tomorrow she'd start looking for their new home. Tomorrow she'd talk to David about the housing program. Tomorrow she'd begin building a life where her children never had to question their worth. But tonight they were safe. They were loved. They were enough. And that was everything. The morning after their third night at Claire's house, Emily sat across from David Mitchell in the hospital cafeteria, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. David, a social worker who split his time between pediatrics and administration, had already spread out several forms across the table between them. "The good news is you definitely qualify," David said, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed her application. "Single parent, healthcare worker. Your income falls within the guidelines. The challenge is the waiting list." Emily's heart sank slightly. "How long are we talking?" "Usually 3 to 6 months, but emergencies sometimes get pushed through faster. The fact that your children were in unsafe conditions, that shed situation you described, that might help expedite things." "Might." Emily tried to keep the desperation out of her voice. David leaned forward, his expression sympathetic. "Document everything, Emily. Take pictures if you can. Get statements from anyone who saw the conditions. It's not just about finding you housing. It's about establishing that your current situation is untenable." Emily nodded, making mental notes. "What else do I need?" "Pay stubs for the last 3 months, your divorce decree, proof of childcare expenses, and a letter from your supervisor confirming your employment status." David slid a checklist across to her. "I know it seems overwhelming, but each piece helps build your case." "Mom." Emily looked up to see Sophie running toward her through the cafeteria, Liam close behind. Claire had brought them to meet her for lunch after their half-day at school. "Hey, sweethearts," Emily said, pulling Sophie onto her lap. "David, these are my kids. Liam, Sophie, this is Mr. Mitchell. He's helping us find a new place to live." David smiled warmly at them. "I hear you're quite the artist," he said to Sophie, who beamed and immediately launched into a description of her latest fairy drawing. "And you must be the astronomer," he added to Liam, who nodded shyly. "Can we really get our own place?" Liam asked, his voice cautious but hopeful. "We're going to try our best," David assured him. "Your mom's doing everything right." After David left, Emily sat with her kids and Claire, picking at a sandwich while the children ate their lunch. Her phone had been buzzing all morning with texts she'd been ignoring, but when it actually rang, she saw it was Ryan. "Don't answer it," Claire advised, but Emily was already swiping to accept. "What do you want, Ryan?" "Nice greeting, sister." His voice was smug as always. "Mom wanted me to tell you that the kids' stuff is getting in the way. If you don't pick it up by tomorrow, she's donating it to Goodwill." "Their stuff." Emily's grip on the phone tightened. "You mean the belongings in the room your kids are sleeping in?" "My boys need the space. Besides, you made your dramatic exit. Can't have it both ways." Emily could feel Liam and Sophie watching her. She forced her voice to remain calm. "We'll get their things today. Better hurry. Mom's in a mood. Something about ungrateful daughters and family disappointment." He chuckled. "By the way, my boys love the room. They especially like that telescope thing Liam left behind." "The telescope." Emily had saved for 6 months to buy it for Liam's birthday. He'd forgotten it in the chaos of leaving. "That's mine," Liam said, having heard Ryan's loud voice through the phone. "Not anymore, kid," Ryan said, clearly enjoying himself. "Possession is 9/10 of the law." Emily hung up on him. "We need to go get your things," she told the kids. "All of them. Today." Claire immediately offered to come with them, and Emily accepted gratefully. An hour later, they pulled up to her parents' house. Emily had hoped to avoid a confrontation by coming in the middle of the day when her father would be at his hardware store, but Walter's truck was in the driveway. "Stay in the car for a minute," Emily told the kids. "Let me see what we're dealing with." She walked to the front door and rang the bell instead of using her key, a small gesture, but one that felt significant. Margaret answered, her expression immediately hardening. "So, you've come to your senses?" "We've come for the children's belongings," Emily said evenly. "All of them." Margaret's lips pursed. "Your father and I have been discussing your behavior. We're willing to let the children sleep in the den if you apologize to Ryan for your rudeness." The den. Emily almost laughed. The room with no door, right next to the kitchen, where Dad watches TV until midnight? "It's better than your current situation, dragging those poor children from house to house. They have a stable, warm place to sleep at Claire's, which is more than you provided." Walter appeared behind Margaret, his expression stern. "You're being stubborn, Emily. Think about what's best for the kids." "I am." Emily stepped past them into the house. "We're here for their things. All of them." She headed upstairs, her parents following. Ryan's boys were at school, but evidence of their presence was everywhere. Their gaming console hooked up to the TV that had been in the kids' room, their clothes scattered on the floor, their posters already replacing Liam's space charts. Emily began gathering what remained of her children's belongings, putting everything into garbage bags she'd brought. Margaret stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "This is ridiculous. You're uprooting those children because of your pride." "Because of my pride?" Emily spun to face her mother. "You put a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old in a structure that wasn't fit for animals, let alone children. There was mold, Mom. Exposed nails. No heat. They had blankets," Walter interjected, as if that solved everything. "Would you have put Ryan's boys out there?" Emily asked. "For even one night?" The silence was answer enough. Emily spotted Liam's telescope in the corner, already set up by the window. She began disassembling it, carefully placing each piece in its case. "Ryan's boys are using that," Margaret protested. "It belongs to Liam. I have the receipt." She continued packing while her parents watched. As she reached for Sophie's art supplies from the closet, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She glanced at it. "Emily, this is Aunt Patricia. Your mother told me what's happening. You need to stop this nonsense and think of family unity. The holidays are coming up." Emily deleted it and kept packing. Another text, this one from her Aunt Diane. "Disappointed in your selfishness. Your parents have done so much for you." Claire appeared in the doorway with Liam and Sophie. "The kids needed to use the bathroom," she said, but Emily knew she'd brought them up as backup. Sophie immediately ran to get her stuffed animals from under what had been her bed, while Liam quietly helped pack his books. Ryan chose that moment to emerge from the master bedroom, wearing sweatpants and a smirk. "Look who's back. Couldn't stay away." Liam glared at him. "We're just getting our stuff. Tough guy now, huh?" Ryan stepped closer to Liam. "Your mom's teaching you to be just as dramatic as she is." "Leave him alone," Emily warned. "Or what? You'll run away again?" Ryan laughed. "Face it, Em. You'll be back. You can't afford to live on your own. You never could manage money." "Like you can?" Emily shot back. "Aren't you living with Mom and Dad because your ex-wife got the house in the divorce? The divorce that happened because you cheated." Ryan's face reddened. "At least I don't poison my kids against their family." "No, you just take their bedroom and laugh about it." Sophie had started crying quietly, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Claire picked her up, shooting daggers at Ryan over the child's head. "Enough," Walter said firmly. "Emily, take what you came for and go. You're upsetting everyone." "I'm upsetting everyone?" Emily almost laughed.
Right.
"Of course. It's always my fault. She grabbed the last bag and ushered her children toward the stairs. Margaret followed them to the door. You're going to regret this, her mother said quietly. When you need us, and you will, we might not be so forgiving. Emily turned to face her mother one last time. When have you ever been there when I needed you? When I was on bed rest. When Sophie was in the NICU. When my marriage was falling apart. You were always too busy with Ryan. That's not fair.
No, Mom.
What's not fair is making my children sleep in a shed while their cousins sleep in their beds. What's not fair is a lifetime of being told I'm not trying hard enough while Ryan gets excuse after excuse. She loaded the bags into Claire's car while her children climbed into her SUV. As they drove away, Emily saw her parents standing in the doorway, Margaret already on her phone, probably calling more relatives to tell her version of events. 3 days later, Emily was finishing her shift when David appeared at the nurse's station, slightly out of breath and grinning. Emily, I need you to come with me. Now. David, I'm in the middle of. Trust me. Get someone to cover. This is important. 20 minutes later, Emily found herself standing outside a small but neat duplex on Willow Avenue, about 15 minutes from the hospital. The building was older but well-maintained, with a small yard and a large oak tree in front. The tenant just broke their lease yesterday. Family emergency. Had to move out of state, David explained, pulling out a key. The housing program has a partnership with the landlord. If you want it, it's yours. Emily's hands shook as she took the key. Are you serious? Completely. The program will cover the security deposit and subsidize part of the rent for the first year. After that, there's a gradual increase, but by then you should be more stable. The front door opened into a small living room with hardwood floors and large windows that let in plenty of light. The kitchen was dated but clean, with enough space for a small table. Down the hall were 2 bedrooms, small, but each with a closet and window. The kids could each have their own room. Emily breathed, already picturing Sophie's fairy drawings on one wall and Liam's space posters on another. The landlord's willing to let you paint, make it your own, David added. And the school district is actually better than where your parents live. Emily stood in what would be Sophie's room, looking out at the backyard where a swing set stood next to a small garden plot. She could see her daughter playing there, see Liam setting up his telescope on the small deck. How soon can we move in? This weekend, if you can swing it. I pulled some strings, emphasized the emergency nature of your situation. Emily felt tears threatening. David, I don't know how to thank you. Just make it a home for those kids. That's thanks enough. That evening, Emily brought Liam and Sophie to see the duplex. Sophie immediately claimed the room with the tree outside the window because fairies definitely live in that tree, Mom. Liam chose the slightly larger room, already planning where his desk would go. Is this really ours? Sophie asked, spinning in circles in the living room. It's really ours, baby. No more shed. Her voice was small, vulnerable. No more shed. No more depending on anyone else. This is our home. Claire had recruited some friends from the hospital to help with the move. On Saturday morning, a small army descended on the duplex with donated furniture, dishes, and everything else needed to set up a home. Janet from the night shift brought a couch her daughter didn't need anymore. Tom from radiology had a kitchen table and chairs. Even Dr. Harrison, the usually gruff head of emergency, showed up with a brand new bed frame for Emily. Heard you were starting fresh, he said gruffly, avoiding eye contact. Everyone deserves that. By afternoon, the duplex was starting to look like a home. Sophie had already taped up drawings in her room, and Liam had his telescope set up by his window. Emily was unpacking kitchen boxes when her phone rang. Margaret. She almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe accept. Your father and I drove by Claire's house. We know you're not there. Where are you, Emily? We're home, Mom. What do you mean, home? You can't afford. I got approved for housing assistance. We have our own place now. Silence. Then, you went behind our backs? Applied for welfare? It's not welfare, it's a program for healthcare workers. And I didn't go behind anyone's back. I'm an adult making decisions for my children. This is ridiculous. You're destroying this family over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Emily laughed bitterly. You put my kids in a shed, Mom. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a choice. Don't expect us to come running when this falls apart, Margaret said coldly. You've made your bed. I don't expect anything from you anymore, Emily replied. That's the point. She hung up and found Liam standing in the doorway, having heard a conversation. Are you okay, Mom? Emily pulled him into a hug. I'm better than okay. We're free, baby. We're finally free. That evening, they had a pizza party in their new home. Claire brought movies, and they all camped out in the living room, Sophie falling asleep against Emily's shoulder while Liam stayed up late talking about how he could see Venus from his bedroom window. Mom, he said quietly as Sophie snored softly, I'm proud of you. Emily's throat tightened. What for? For standing up to them. For getting us out. For being brave. You know what? I'm proud of us. We're a pretty good team. Later, after the kids were in their own beds in their own rooms, Emily stood in her small kitchen, looking around at their new home. It wasn't much. The linoleum was peeling in one corner, the cabinets needed painting, and the whole place could fit in her parents' living room. But it was theirs. No one could take it away. No one could decide her children weren't good enough for it. Her phone buzzed with another message, this one from Walter. Your mother is devastated. This is what you wanted? To hurt your family? Emily typed back. What I wanted was for my children to be treated with basic human dignity. What I wanted was for them to matter as much as Ryan's kids. What I wanted was parents who saw putting children in a shed as wrong. Since I couldn't have that, I chose this instead. She hit send, then blocked his number. Then Margaret's. Then Ryan's. For the first time in years, Emily felt like she could breathe. 2 weeks had passed since the move, and life had settled into a beautiful routine. Emily would drop the kids at their new school, where they'd already made friends, work her shift, and come home to her own place. No walking on eggshells, no apologizing for existing, no watching her children be treated as less than. This particular Saturday morning, she was driving the kids to their soccer game when they passed her parents' house. It wasn't exactly on the way, but Emily had taken this route deliberately, a small test for herself. There's Grandma and Grandpa's house, Sophie said quietly from the back seat. Emily glanced in the rearview mirror to see both kids, looking out the window. Ryan's BMW was in the driveway, along with another car she didn't recognize. The front yard had been decorated for Halloween, something Margaret did elaborately every year. There were no decorations in the shed area, she noticed. It had been closed up, forgotten, as if it had never housed 2 children. Do you miss them? Emily asked carefully. Sophie was quiet for a moment. I miss who I wanted them to be, she finally said, wise beyond her 7 years. Yeah, Liam agreed. I miss the grandparents we should have had, not the ones we actually had. Emily's heart ached for them, but she was also proud of their emotional intelligence, their ability to process such complex feelings. They continued to the soccer field, where both kids were on teams, something Emily couldn't have afforded when living with her parents, because Margaret had always found ways to make her feel guilty about any expense. Now, with her housing costs manageable, she could give her children these normal childhood experiences. She was setting up her folding chair on the sideline when she noticed a familiar figure approaching. Her stomach dropped. Margaret was walking toward her, dressed in her Saturday best, purse clutched tightly. Hello, Emily. Emily stood slowly.
Mom.
What are you doing here? I knew the children had soccer. I've always come to their games. That was a lie. Margaret had been to exactly 2 games in the past year, both times when she could show off to her church friends. You can't just show up here, Emily said quietly, aware of other parents around them. They're my grandchildren. Who you put in a shed. Margaret's face tightened. Must you keep bringing that up? It was a temporary arrangement. Before Emily could respond, Sophie noticed her grandmother and came running over, then stopped short, uncertain. Hi, Grandma, she said cautiously. Margaret knelt down, arms open for a hug, but Sophie stayed by Emily's side. Sophie, dear, I've missed you so much. Don't you want to give Grandma a hug? Sophie pressed closer to Emily. You made us sleep outside. The words were said so simply, so matter-of-factly, that they hit harder than any accusation. Margaret's face flushed. We didn't. Liam had jogged over by now, his expression guarded.
Grandma.
Liam, sweetheart. You've gotten taller. That happens, he said flatly. Margaret stood, brushing off her knees. I see your mother has poisoned you against us. No, Liam said firmly. You did that yourself when you gave our room to Ryan's kids and made us sleep with the lawnmower. Several nearby parents were now openly watching, and Margaret noticed. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, she said tightly. There's nothing to discuss, Emily said. You made your choice. We've made ours. Your choice to deny your children their grandparents? My choice to protect them from people who see them as disposable. Margaret's voice rose slightly. We are not those kind of people. We love all our grandchildren equally. Really? Emily's voice was calm but carrying. Then why did Ryan's boys get the beds while mine got the shed? It was just. Why did Ryan's boys get heat while mine got mold and broken windows? You're exaggerating. Am I? Should I show you the pictures I took? The ones with the exposed nails and the rat droppings. Margaret glanced around at their audience, her face reddening. This is neither the time nor the place. You're right. The time was 2 weeks ago when you should have said, Emily, we're sorry. We made a terrible mistake. We should never have put the children in danger. The place was your house, where you should have immediately moved Ryan's kids to the den and given mine their room back. The den wasn't suitable. Margaret started, then realized what she'd said. But the shed was? Emily asked quietly. The silence stretched between them. Sophie tugged on Emily's hand. Mom, my game's starting. Go ahead, sweetie. Good luck. Both kids ran back to their teams, clearly relieved to escape the tension. Margaret watched them go, her expression unreadable. They seem well, she said finally. They're thriving, Emily confirmed. Amazing what a safe, warm place to sleep will do. Margaret reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Your father wanted me to give you this. Emily didn't take it. What is it? A check. To help with your rent. We don't need your money. Don't be proud, Emily. Think of the children. I am thinking of them. I'm teaching them that love doesn't come with conditions. That they don't have to accept poor treatment for financial security. Margaret's composure finally cracked. We're trying to help you. No, you're trying to buy your way out of accountability. You're trying to make this go away without ever acknowledging what you did wrong. What do you want from us? Margaret's voice was frustrated, angry. I wanted you to love my children as much as you love Ryan's. But since that's apparently impossible, I want you to stay away from them until you can at least admit that putting them in a shed was wrong. Margaret stared at her for a long moment. You'll regret this, Emily, when they're older and ask why they don't know their grandparents. I'll tell them the truth, Emily interrupted, that their grandparents value their comfort less than their cousins, that they chose favoritism over family, that when given the chance to make it right, they doubled down instead of apologizing. Margaret turned and walked away without another word. Emily watched her go, feeling both sad and relieved. She'd held on to hope for so long that her parents would suddenly see the light, would understand the hurt they'd caused. But some people were incapable of that kind of self-reflection. The next few days were quiet. Emily had half expected a barrage of calls and texts from extended family, but there was nothing. Maybe they'd all grown tired of the drama. Or maybe Margaret was too embarrassed to admit what had really happened. Then, on Thursday evening, a letter arrived. Emily recognized Walter's handwriting immediately. She waited until the kids were in bed before opening it. Emily, I've been thinking about what happened. Your mother doesn't know I'm writing this. I need you to know that I do understand how it looked, putting the kids in the shed. It wasn't right. I should have stood up to your mother and Ryan. I should have protected Liam and Sophie. I'm not good at apologies. Never have been. But I am sorry. I failed as a grandfather. I failed as a father. I see that now. Your mother isn't ready to admit she was wrong. She may never be. But I wanted you to know that I understand why you left. You did what I should have done, protected those kids. I'd like to see them again someday, if you'll let me. Not at the house, not with your mother or Ryan around. Just me. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway. Walter. Emily read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't a perfect apology. He still couldn't bring himself to say the words fully. But it was more accountability than she'd ever expected from him. She folded the letter and put it in her dresser drawer. Maybe someday she'd let Walter see the kids again, supervised, away from Margaret's influence. Maybe. But not yet. Trust, once broken, took time to rebuild. The next morning, she was making breakfast when Liam came into the kitchen, already dressed for school. Mom, I've been thinking. About what, sweetheart? About forgiveness. We're learning about it in school. The teacher says forgiveness is important. Emily chose her words carefully. Forgiveness is complicated, baby. You can forgive someone for your own peace, but that doesn't mean you have to let them back into your life if they haven't changed. Liam nodded thoughtfully. So we can forgive Grandma and Grandpa, but still not see them?
Exactly.
Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or accepting bad treatment. Sophie bounded in, already chattering about her art project. As Emily helped her tie her shoes, she marveled at how resilient her children were. They'd been through so much, but they were happy, secure, thriving. That afternoon, Emily stood in her small backyard, watching Sophie play on the swing while Liam read under the oak tree. The space was modest, nothing like her parents' large property. But it was theirs. No one could take it away. No one could decide they didn't deserve it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Claire. How are you guys doing? Emily typed back, we're home. And they were. Not just in the physical sense, but in every way that mattered. They'd found their place in the world, small as it might be, where they were valued, loved, and never, ever second class. The shed was behind them now, just a bad memory that had led to something better. Emily had given her children something more valuable than a big house or grandparents who played favorites. She'd given them dignity, self-respect, and the knowledge that they deserved to be treated well, always. As the sun set over their little duplex, Emily called the kids in for dinner. They sat around their small table, Liam talking about his science project while Sophie drew pictures on her placemat, and Emily knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. They were free. They were safe. They were home. And that was everything they needed. Have you ever had to choose between family harmony and your children's dignity? And did you have the courage to choose your children? If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength when family tests your limits.